personally. So that numinous means full of consciousness, luminous, full of light, resonant, it's musical, vitality, which connects you to all living things and which also causes you to value living things as if they were a part of yourself, because they are a part of yourself. The ability to realize this connection is the pearl of great price. That is the personal inherited wealth of every sentient being, and not every sentient being is human. It's basically a Natarian concept, or the history at least goes back to Kemet. So the capacity of one's soul is unlimited, but it can be suppressed. Generally, for the purposes, the reason it's suppressed is generally for the purposes of mundane square institutions, soul expression is suppressed. So when I was talking about Freud, soul-oriented times 5. So when you're talking in Western psychology, which is based on Freud, oriented times 3. You heard that phrase? Ever been in an accident and the paramedics respond to you? No? Seen it on TV? They ask you certain things. What do they ask you?
Do you know who you are?
Yep. Do you know who you are? Your name.
Do you know where you're at?
Okay.
Do you know what day it is?
Okay. Okay. Oriented times 3. Okay. Basic test for if you're operating normally. Do you know your name? We're testing for amnesia. Do you know where you are? Can you locate yourself in the timeline? Yeah, where am I? Do you know where you are? Do you know how you got here? Yeah, I just had an accident or whatever. Okay? You know what day it is. Not just what day it is, but like who's president. Are you oriented to current events? So this is the basic test for sanity, which comes out of Freud, basically ego-driven orientation. That's why they ask that. They want to know, okay, are you oriented? Times 3. All right? So soul-oriented times 5. Soul, your invisible essence. So it consists of asking you essentially 5 questions. Who were you before you were born? Who were you before you woke up? Who are you in your deepest dreams? Who will you be in your life? Who will you be after you die? Now, where this is coming from is ultimately a Natarian framework, but it is also, there are also various Africans in America, particularly Maroons, that also have this framework. So I actually just capsulized it in this soul-oriented times 5. So G squared MCH is me. I do have a poetic license, but the idea is this. Okay? First of all, you can't necessarily, and there's a reason for this order. Most people can't answer question 1. It's outside of their framework. It's outside of a Freudian framework. You can't answer it from inside a Freudian framework at all. Because it presupposes that you were someplace before you were born, which is not in a Western psychological framework. at all. Who were you before you woke up? Well, that's like, what, dreams? That means you were somebody in dreams? Yeah, well, can you answer that? Do you dream consciously? Are you aware of who you are in the dream state? Are you aware that you are dreaming? Are you awake and aware in a dream state? Do you regularly cultivate that? Those are other questions that you have to be able to do that before you can answer question 2. So most people just start with, who are you in your deepest dreams? Who will you be in your life? You start there. Who are you in your deepest dreams? Who will you be in your life? Then you can get to who were you before you woke up? And then who you were before you were born can be answered, and who will you be after you die? Can be answered too. So, if you or your culture can't answer those questions, you can be controlled. That's how soul expression gets limited. So to the degree that you can culturally self-define those answers, to that degree you can be autonomous. That is, as we'd say in psychology, an internal locus of control in your soul. There's a Yoruba proverb that says, "May my outer head not spoil my inner head." The outer head is the people, the person that you show to the world, and the inner head is who you are inside, in your deepest dreams. That you only share with people that you're willing to share that with, that won't attempt to belittle or destroy that. So, Dr. Naeem Akbar basically talked about African psychology in this way. The African self is rooted in the soul. Each level is an individual connection to a greater whole. So, rather than a threefold self like Freud, the African self, this is coming out of Natarianism as well as various other individual African-based spirituality, distilled into contemporary English, the African self, soul, body, mind, social, tribal, ancestral. So soul, spiritual. So Naeem talks about, if you think of spirit like energy, spirit animating your body, it's your energetic, your felt, lived, energetic connection to the rest of the universe. Who knows it, feels it? Yeah, like Bob Marley sings. Your soul basically infuses your body, but it's separate from your body. Your body is your physical body. Your mind, which in this construct includes your emotions, your personal feelings, while in this body, primarily as Freud would have it, identified with the body. But if you have soul experience, you understand you're not just the body. And you experience that without necessarily being crazy. Shh. I saw this t-shirt on the way here. Shh, I'm hiding from the voices. Okay, what voices? Do you know what you're listening to? Mind, personal and emotional. So not only your thoughts, but also your emotions and feelings. Social self is your relationship with other, not only human beings, your family, but other beings that you encounter in life while awake, as well as in the dream state. Tribal, ancestral. So an ancestor is somebody who has gone on, who's no longer in their body. Okay, so the African self basically encompasses this fivefold construct. Each level is an individual connection to a greater whole. So Naeem Akbar. So know yourself, your ego, the depth of your soul, the health of your body, the clarity of your mind. All those who face the same struggle you do are with you. Yeshua said, as an example of this, where 2 or 3 of you are gathered in my name, there I am too. All those who face the same struggle you do are with you. In the movie Amistad, when Sin-Q talks about, okay, we're going into court, I'm not worried because my ancestors are with me. That's not Hollywood. He literally feels that way. Justice will prevail, so to speak. American justice. So, all those who face the same struggle you do are with you as allies, though those you know now, and as ancestors, those who have gone before. There's a word in Sanskrit, Ritam Parambhagyam. It is, if it ever was. Okay? The ancestors, those who have gone before, show us what is possible. Our allies help us make what is possible happen, even if it has never been done before. So that's why when we're talking about those twin influences in African American culture, tradition, and innovation, if it's ever been done, we can tune into it and make it happen now. If it's never been done, the ancestors can help us give ideas and inspiration to make what needs to happen now happen, even if it's never happened. This graphic, Njuka Maroon. So Njuka Maroons, first of all, Maroons basically are slaves or ex-slaves who have freed themselves and created free societies outside of slavery. The Njuka Maroons are basically in Suriname, South America, Dutch Suriname. So this cycle here, it's basically an example of a maroon view of a life cycle. So above the line is life. Above the line is life. Below the line is death. So what it says here in terms of ancestorhood, so here is basically your soul. Ancestorhood, ancestors are people who have lived before, but their soul, their energetic essence still exists, but it's invisible. Perceivable, but invisible. So one of the rules, if you will, of ancestorhood. So I was raised with this awareness of Grandma Zelie. You don't know Grandma Zelie, but Grandma Zelie is my grandmother's grandmother. Now my family, basically, like, as I said before, we're the slaves that taught each other how to read and write when it was a death sentence. So Grandma Zelie was from Morocco. And somehow she got captured, probably by Muslim slavers, sold out of Ivory Coast and sold to Virginia, where she was sold away from her mom and infant sister. Never saw them again. Now, this is 4. Okay, so she made the passage on the slave ship, 4 years old. Okay, sold away from her mom and infant sister, never saw them again. So here's the deal. A 4-year-old probably cannot work the fields. Maybe. But someone, maybe herself, but the way the story is told, hero is the teller of the tale, right? So in our family, the story is told, she taught herself to read and write when it was a death sentence. And it was a death sentence in Virginia. So she passed on this value, and this is why it was explained to me. I got taught to read at 4 because of Grandma Zeeley. Okay, so you got to teach your kids how to read. Okay, I'm a slacker. They learn to read at 5. Still before school. All right? So here, Grandma Zeeley still influenced the family because my grandmother talked about her as if she was present. My grandma and her sisters talked about Grandma Zeeley as if she was present. Constantly. And their thing was, okay, this is our ancestors, this is why we do what we do, this is our identity. And this person is still around. In fact, when both of my grandmother and my Aunt Minnie died, were on their deathbed, they both said they saw Grandma Zeeley in the room with them. I mean, Aunt Minnie basically said, oh, she was there and she saw my grandmother appear in the hallway in her favorite Sunday go-to-church hat, singing her favorite hymn, Shout Sister Bessie. And in 5 minutes, the phone call comes from the nursing home that she had just passed. And then when she was on her deathbed, she said she saw Grandma and Grandma Zeeley before she passed. Now, this could be a hallucination of the dying, right? But no, in my framework, this is real. The ancestors are present, as well as unborn children. So there's a movie you could rent. It's called Daughters of the Dust by Julie Dash. Very powerful movie. So it's basically talking about an African-American family in the Sea Islands of Georgia. And they're in this interface. Basically, they remember being slaves. The matriarch of the family, Mama Pesant, every day she's at the grave of her husband talking with him as if he's still alive. And she basically does her roots and her herbs, etc., etc. So she's old school African. They've got, a slave who was a Muslim who prays to Mecca every day, 5 times a day, within the movie. The movie is narrated by an unborn child who isn't born during the movie, but appears basically among her relatives and basically said, Grandma Pesant prayed for me to come so that I would be there to hold the family together. Okay, so this worldview, right, an African worldview, the ancestors and unborn children inhabit the space around us. Sounds crazy, but again, this is a different type of physics. The idea, copy that, thanks. The idea is you're alive. Life is energy. Energy can change form, but it can't be destroyed. Okay? You succeed and inhabit the physical body, and after the physical body is gone, you're still around. And the rule is, at least a working rule, at least as expressed in my family, as long as there is a person that knew you in life, you're around. And as soon as the last person that knew you in life crosses over, then you move on. Or you can move on. Unless you're able to consciously stick around. But you don't experience time, so it's not like they're hanging around waiting for us to notice them. No, it's different. So, ancestors and unborn children incarnate childhood, adulthood, old age, and then you cross over and you become an ancestor. So the Njuka Maroons. According to Njuka and Aluko Maroons, human beings have an Aka, an unchanging essential spirit, a soul, and a body. Person is born from the invisible world of the ancestors, grows from childhood into adulthood, in the visible world of the living, grows old, dies, and returns to the status of ancestor. When a person has lived a good life, his or her soul returns to the visible world after death as a newborn. This process is known as Nenseki, reincarnation. Chart shows how each of the three levels of existence in concentric circles, the inner circle, the Akad, essential spirit, middle circle, Nenseki, ancestral soul and process of reincarnation, outer circle, person in the life cycle. Upper half of the circle represents the visible world into which people are born and out of which they die. The lower half of the circle represents the invisible world inhabited by ancestors and spirits. Two worlds coexist, but only ritual specialists, mediums, usually see and interact with the invisible world. So this is basically kind of also the worldview that Vodun talks about, but it is also the worldview of Netarianism, the Egyptian state religion, where you can choose your incarnation. So it's not just physical death. You can also choose to be reborn as a new person as you evolve spiritually in life. Okay, so it's not just death. There are many forms of death. Sometimes there's ego death. Okay, when you're initiated, the child dies and you become an adult. You're no longer a child. Okay, when you get married, the single person dies. You're now an adult in a marriage. And so on. So that whole purpose of rites of passage. So within this cosmology, which is essentially African, that's where that soul special education piece is coming from. Thanks, 2 minutes. So gnosis. Black gnosis is how we take from, as Netarianism calls it, amenta. So the amenta is our inner storehouse of universal knowledge. The knowledge of what was and what can be, and set about making it what it is. So the idea is this. The purpose, you have the wisdom, this is from Netarianism, you have the wisdom of the universe inside you already. There's nothing to learn. You have it in you already. But the purpose of education is to draw that out. And this concept got translated by the Romans into Latin. Education means literally to draw out, which means, all right, if we're drawing it out, it's in you already. Well, the concept came from Egypt. Okay? The universe is part of you. You are part of the universe. You go to the university to draw specific knowledge out in your particular life pattern as you recognize it, as it inspires you. But the word for this universal storehouse of knowledge is your amenta. I'm assuming another minute. Yeah. So as an example, this Adinkra alphabet these are not, remember, not used as a sentence, but basically to draw particular things out of you, to talk about specific aspects of yourself. That's the intent of the alphabet. And this alphabet is once symbolic, to bring knowledge from within, without. That's all I got. See you next week with a brand new show.
Nazi